Okay, in the last lesson, we have solved the most pressing question, which is what is the Chinese sentence structure? Which turns out that the Chinese sentence structure is very similar with the English sentence structure. We have a subject, a verb, and an object. Today, we're going to solve another really important question, which is the type of verbs in Chinese language. There are 4 types of verbs in Chinese language. 3 of them are very similar with English. The first 3 are stative verbs. Second one is modal verbs. The third type is action verbs. And the last one, which is very special in our Chinese, a new edition, in the Chinese language, is called adjective verbs. I'm going to talk about adjective verbs in the last. Firstly, let's have a look at the 3 verbs. As it suggested, stative verbs, it is a verb that lacks of movement. It's static. So it is a verb that is used to describe people's opinion, thoughts, and describe people's feelings, emotions, and also the positions and the measurement. So let's have a look at some example of the stative verbs. 想 think, 知道 know. Okay, let's have a look at the 想 and 知道 in a sentence. 我知道游泳池在哪里。我知道游泳池在哪里。I know where the swimming pool is. So 知道 is the verb of that sentence. Next sentence, feeling and emotions. So for example, likes, loves. These are the stative verbs. 我爱我的家. I means love is the verb of the sentence. The last example, positions and measurement, like have. 我的家有4个人. 我的家有4个人. 有 means have. Right? So because your family will have 4 people in that constant unchangeable state for a while, at least for a while. So we say that it's a stative verbs. There is another very important verb that I haven't write it down over there as an example, but I'm just going to write it down for English, is the be word. Be word is the word that, so all the words that originated from the word be, including am, is, are, and the past tense of that form is were, was. These are the be words. In Chinese, all these am, is, are, were, was equal to one of the words. One of the word 是 with a false tone on the top of the I. I cannot type that, but you know that 是. So let's have a look at some examples. How do you say I am a teacher? 我是老师. Okay, so in this way, 是 stands for am. It means I am a teacher. How about you are my friend? 你是我的朋友. So over there, this time, 是 it means are. So you are my friend. Let's do one more example as is. How about this is my school? This is my school. This, as I have talked about before, that pronoun is 这是我的 my 学校. We learned 学校 last term. This is my school. One of the most important Chinese stative verbs because they're going to be used very widely in this language. So I want you to be able to know this word very well. 是 it means am, is, are, where, was. As we know that the verbs does not change the tense and reflect the tense in the word, but we do reflect the tense of that word in different other ways. However, 是 can mean all these 5 different meanings. All right, let's move on. So this is the first type of verbs. that we're talking about. Stative verbs, which means no movement words. And then the opposite of the stative verbs is action verbs. Okay, so action verbs, as they suggested, it has dynamic in it. So the words like 跑步 ran, 看 watch or read, 说话 talk, 上课 attend class, all these kind of things that involves our movements, we call that action verbs. It's one of the most frequently used verbs in any languages. All right, so I don't need to speak too much about action verbs now. The next type of verbs is called modal verbs. Modal verbs cannot exist by itself. It normally have to follow another action verbs or stative verbs behind it. So modal verbs in English are like should, would, could, can, those kind of words. The modal verbs are used to show if we believe something is certain, possible, or impossible. So, for example, might or may. In Chinese, we say 可能. So, for example, you want to say it might rain tomorrow. We say 明天 tomorrow. 可能 might 下雨 rain. Tomorrow might rain. 明天可能下雨. The second examples are the modal verbs used as talk about the capability, asking permission, and making request. In English, we have can, is capable of or is possible to do something. However, can, the word can in English can be interpreted in several ways. It can be interpreted as asking for permission, like, can I go to the toilet? In the classroom, you ask that request to your teachers. And in other times, you can use the word can as someone's capability. Like, for example, can you play basketball? So in that way, we're using a different Chinese word, 会, to represent that meaning. So let's have a look at these two examples, 可以 and 会. Both are translated as can, but have different meanings. The first one, 我可以说英文吗? 我 means I, 可以 means can, 说 means speak, 英文 or 英语, it means English. As we talked about before, simple question, which means yes or no question, is a statement, which is this part, which is a statement. 我可以说英文, I can speak English, with a question mark, 吗 at the end, and then it turns to it convert the statement sentence into a yes or no question. 我可以说英语吗? Can I speak English? So in this sentence, 可以 means can. The second example, 你会打篮球吗? 你会打篮球吗? Over here, I also can translate that sentence into can you play basketball? However, this time you are inquiring about your friend's capability of doing that sport. In this case, we have to use a different Chinese modal verb, which is 会. It means is capable of. So 你 means you, 会 it means can or is capable of. 打篮球 play basketball. So, and can you play basketball is also a yes or no question. We follow the same rule. A statement, 你可以打篮球, you can play basketball, with a question mark, 吗 at the end. Last but not least, there is another word, 能, in Chinese modal verb. 能, it can represent as can, 可以, or sometimes it can use it as 会. So it's kind of like a modal verb that it have two usages. So let's have a look at an example, and you can tell me which word does it translate it into. 你能告诉我为什么吗? 你能, you can. 告诉我 tell me 为什么 why 吗? It is also a yes or no question, even though you got two question words, which is 为什么 why, and ma is also question word. However, it still goes into the category of yes or no question, because the first part, the first sentence is a statement. You can tell me why. You can tell me why. It is a statement with a ma at the end. Can you tell me why is the translation of that sentence. Okay, can you tell me why? So can you tell me why that sentence, the modal verbs can, is interpreted as, is that possible? Is that okay that you tell me that? So it's kind of a interpretation of asking permission or asking for your capability. So we can use the word 能 when you caught up into these two interpretations. You're not sure whether I use the word 可以 or use the word 会. So you can use the word 能. All right, now we come to the highlight of this lesson, because stative verbs, modal verbs, action verbs are very familiar to you, because English follow the same rules. We have this kind of three verbs in English language. However, the last verbs is called adjectival verbs in Chinese. We don't have that usage in English. In Chinese, lots of the adjectives can be used as a verb in a sentence. So, for example, tree is tall. In that sentence, is omitted. We don't need to translate that word. So basically you can say tree tall in Chinese, and that makes sense and is a good sentence. So 树很高, tree very tall. You can even say 树高. 树很高 means tree is very tall. Another example, he is tired. Same goes the is. We don't need to translate that word. We just say he tired. 他累了. 他累了. 累了 means tired. Another one, you are smart. You are smart. The word are is not translated. 你很聪明. 你很聪明. 很聪明 means very smart. Last sentence, Harry Potter is interesting. Harry Potter is interesting. So over there, you can say Harry Potter 有意思. Harry Potter 有意思. 有意思, it means interesting. So now we're going to have a practice of the adjectival verbs. Making some sentences with the adjective verbs of this unit. So in this unit, I have chosen nine different verbs and 9 different adjectives. So I want you to make some sentences with those words, with those adjective verbs. I've already have an example for you. The first adjective 很大, very big. I made a sentence over here. 我朋友的家很大. 我朋友, my friend, 的家 is house, very big. So you can see that I don't have the translation of is. 很大 is already a verb. 我朋友的家很大. So in the next 10 to 20 minutes, I want you to make a sentence for each of the adjectives. Start with 很小, very small. 很贵, very expensive. 很便宜, very cheap. 很好吃, very yum. 太大了, too big. 太贵了, too expensive. 不大, not big. 不好吃, not yummy. I want you to make the sentence under each of the adjectives, just in this gap.